It feels good to be back. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new here, my name is Alina. So I've been gone for a little bit now. I took a few weeks out. Very exciting things have been happening in my life, particularly in my career, I guess where I'm heading. I've got a very exciting video coming. I'm not entirely sure when, but it's very, very cool, very, very exciting. And things are going in a very upward trajectory. That is a hard one to say. With all this happening in the background of my life, it kind of has brought me to today's topic, which is understanding emotions. Since moving to Toronto within the last 2.5 months or so now, I have had a particularly tough time. It's definitely been a lot of highs, but a lot of stress as well. And navigating the emotions around my everyday life has been particularly hard. So I noticed in these last few weeks when things were going really good, like, how am I able to identify, like, when things are good and when things are bad, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Alexithymia is something that I struggle with, and for those of you who don't know what it is basically this kind of inability to be able to identify your own emotions. It's almost like dissociating. You kind of really have a hard time knowing what you feel. From what I know, alexithymia is something that people without autism can experience, but I know particularly for autistic, high masking individuals, it is far more likely to kind of be there in the background, because so much of your life is having to be masked. So much of your life is having to be denied as well for the comfort of other people. And so over time, particularly if you've gone a long period of time like myself, 25 years of not being diagnosed, you learn very quickly that this much of myself I can show, but all of this I can't. And that becomes the norm. That becomes the routine. That becomes what your nervous system becomes comfortable with. It's almost as though the mind cuts off the emotions, the access to the emotions, because it's far easier to not know how you feel than to know how you feel and deny yourself your needs. For me as a child, I was always cold. I run cold. You touch me, I'm always freezing cold. Everything was too loud for me. Everything was too overwhelming for me. For a lot of my life, I learned the way to get acknowledgement, the way to self-soothe, the way to be heard came not in that moment, but afterwards. When you got home, that's when you can scream. That's when you can have a meltdown, because home was a safe space. So now, as an adult, home for me resembles a place of authenticity, and real emotions can be accessed. I think also when I was like a teenager in high school, I was kind of the odd one out. However, what I will say is I was very privileged in the fact that I did have friends. I did have a friend group. I was kind of, at the time, the only one that expressed that I had anxiety. It was not kind of the thing as it is now. I didn't feel that the friends that I was around did understand me, and I was actually going to therapy. You know, I would come out of school to go to therapy, and there just kind of wasn't this understanding. In fact, this is what cracks me up. I was actually referred to as the group's pet versus like their friend, because of how vulnerable I came across when I was expressing, like, guys, I'm really anxious. If we went out together as a group of friends and we went shopping, I would always ask like one of the friends to take my card and pay for the thing that I wanted, because I just had so much anxiety. I guess that's what gave me the title of their pet, because they took care of me. I grew to be kind of comfortable with that name, being the pet, because it meant that they were aware that I had higher needs than everyone else, and they were looking out for me. All of this to say, I learnt from childhood, going through my teenage years to now adulthood, that you kind of shut off your needs because people will find fault in you having higher needs than other people. You come across more vulnerable, and so it's almost easier to not have those needs, pretend you don't have these needs, and in turn you pretend to not have the emotions and then that becomes your way of life. And here I am now where I can manage everything. I can do whatever anyone wants me to do. For example, I was with my friend and she had been talking all week about going to this party. And I was like, all for going to this party all week. And then like a few days before I got sick, and I got very, very sick. And I remember her kind of being disappointed. Oh my gosh, like we're not going to be able to go now. And it was seeing this disappointment and knowing that I had made her disappointed that I said like, no, I'll still come. Like I can still get through this. It's not going to kill me. Am I going to enjoy myself? Well, that's a whole nother story, but I can still make it. This is probably an element of alexithymia, is struggling to identify where the boundary is. Do you want me to come to the party? I can make it. That's not going to kill me. It's going to make me extremely tired. I'm probably going to feel like absolute shit, but I can still do it. I can do whatever you want. I can perform, I can do whatever you need me to do. But if you're asking me, am I going to enjoy it? Probably the answer is no. So this is something now that I'm trying to understand about myself. Like, where is that boundary? I did an interview about a month ago now with Orion Kelly. I'm going to leave the video down below for those of you who haven't seen it. It's a great freaking interview and he's got such an incredible YouTube channel. But in that, there was something that he said to me that I haven't stopped thinking about. So thank you, Orion. In reference to me telling him like I can do whatever anyone wants me to do, I can manage it all. I'm just going to have like a meltdown. And he said to me, well, then you can't manage it. A neurotypical doesn't need to have that meltdown after socializing. But if you are needing to have that meltdown, then you can't manage it. And that was a revolutionary concept to me. I think about that so often, and it really has put things into perspective for me. Now, having moved countries, my mind feels so distracted, like 80% of the time. I don't know honestly what I feel anymore because so much of my life I live in adrenaline because everything is uncertain to me. Everything is unknown to me. I barely cry. I heard someone say this, it's like your emotions are constipated, and that's honestly what it feels like. I so would love the outlet, but I don't have that other than running. And so for me now, I'm really having to start getting familiar with myself again and the relationship with myself. In the last month or so, I've been trialing out, I guess, different things, different strategies to be able to help tend to myself and my needs and understand how I feel a little bit more. And I wanted to share that with you guys today because I know that this is an experience for so many of us on the autism spectrum, particularly if we've been through trauma as well on top of the autism. Like, it's just a fucking shit show. The first thing that I feel like as a starting point, if you just have no concept of how you feel, I feel like the first thing to do is to get curious about how you're feeling. If something feels wrong, if you're able to identify like my body feels heavy or my mind feels slower or I just don't feel good, start getting curious as to what that could be and start trialing different things. So this might seem weird because I think autistic people are very intentional, like we are very methodical, we think about things and then we do them. But in this situation, with trying to understand and build and mend the relationship to your emotional side, I think it's about getting curious. Start by taking a glass of water, sitting quietly with yourself for a few minutes, having a shower. That's always my go-to. Like, it's a reset, it's a complete reset, and just see what happens. It doesn't matter what you do, but the point is it has to be you doing something for yourself rather than for somebody else. Take the rest of the day. If you're feeling like, oh my God, I'm feeling something, but I don't know what it is, but I've got this invite out for work or someone needs me to do this, make the commitment to yourself to take, maybe it's the next hour, 2 hours if you've got something that's really pressing. Take that time specifically for you and start doing things that you think could help. And just notice how things are making you feel, the differences in how things are making you feel. So if a glass of water doesn't do anything, just take note of it. It doesn't have to be an instant fix, but what it is, it's about coming into your body a bit more and becoming a little bit more familiar, relying on yourself to give you the cue rather than looking to somebody else to say that you're okay, because you need to feel that. My favorite one, and something that I have been doing since I moved here, is a feelings chart. It is incredibly helpful, particularly when I'm trying to vocalize how I'm feeling to somebody and I don't have the words, don't have the capacity to share it. But that has been very cool for me to have because it's a visual and it allows me to start to get more familiar with like the different kind of emotions. Another one is music. When I don't have the words, when I don't have any capacity to talk, I listen to music. I specifically go in with the intention of listening to sad music, and if there's like a line that I like, or even just the way that an instrument sounds, that is so incredibly helpful because it's, again, bringing me back into my body. It's allowing me to identify and relate to somebody else, what somebody else is saying. Music always makes me feel something, but it can be, I guess, a far less threatening way of having a relationship with yourself and your emotions. The last one, and I know that this could be a tough one for someone who kind of doesn't have the relationship with themselves. This one might take some time to build up to, but if you are somebody who has done a lot of therapy, this might not be a too far a concept for you to grasp. For me, I'm still grasping it. Talking to yourself like the parent is talking to your inner child. So in those moments when you are feeling overwhelmed, when you are feeling distressed, when you are feeling shit, basically, a lot of it for me, it's very similar distress that I felt as a child. Now, being so far away from my family, my home, everything that I know that helps me make me feel better, the only familiar point that I've got in this new city that I'm in is myself. And so I am trying now in these moments to talk to myself like I'm not me, I'm the parent of me. When I think about being outside of myself and I'm talking to this child, I'm able to identify the emotions a little bit easier because it's not me. I don't know if this is making any sense at all, and it probably fucking isn't. I guess the point is it's mending, it's bonding you to your inner child. Just try and talk to yourself. Be the parent that you need. Doesn't matter whether you're 45, 95, we all sometimes need someone to just say that it's going to be okay. These are just some things that I wanted to share, but I always like to end these videos that I make with like different perspectives, because I'm not, the be all and end all of freaking autism. There are people that have far greater advice than I can give. I'm just someone who's learning every day. I wanted to read this person's advice of how they improved their alexithymia, and this has come from Reddit. I will link the page down below for those of you who care. So this person says, here are some ways I have improved my alexithymia. I practice looking at my emotions like I would a puzzle to solve. I used to ignore my feelings because I didn't know what to do with them. I hoped they would go away. But the obstacle was the path. I needed to make peace with my emotions, and to do that, I needed to understand them. I've read books on psychology because I tend to intellectualize first before I can absorb something on a more meaningful level. I practice talking about my feelings with my partner, friends, and family, and listen to their feelings and think about what they are trying to express, not just the literal meaning of the words. I journal a lot. I still listen to a lot of music. Also, try not to beat yourself up for not being better at recognizing your emotions. I spent a long time doing that and it prevented me from making progress. I just felt like that was just quite a human level, a human answer to this issue, and just to remind you guys that this is an experience that a lot of us go through. Committing to yourself and the relationship with yourself, I think, is step one. And even just learning about it. That's kind of what I've got to say to you guys today. I hope someone found value in this. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye.